여기도 시야보니까 왜 아이사한테 그늘가 있어요.
How do North Koreans sleep through winter in tiny apartments when heat is unreliable or gone entirely? Imagine concrete buildings, frozen pipes, and nights that fall well below zero. Lights flicker out, heaters stay cold. Yet families endure. What quiet survival methods keep them alive when warmth disappears? For centuries, Koreans survived winter by heating the ground beneath their bodies. That logic still shapes how North Koreans sleep today, even inside cramped concrete apartments. The ondol system, an underfloor heating method older than modern boilers, remains the most important source of warmth when electricity and gas fail. In apartment buildings, ondol is usually built into thick concrete floors. Hot water or steam flows through pipes cast inside the slab, or in older designs, hot air and smoke move through channels beneath the floor before exiting through a shared chimney. When the system works, the floor itself becomes the heater. Heat rises slowly from below. This matters. Cold air sinks, but people sleep and sit on the floor, directly on the warmest surface available. Even if the room air feels cold, the body stays warm where it touches the floor. Families spread thin mattresses, mats, or quilts directly on the heated concrete and sleep there through the night. Ondol stores heat well. When fuel is available, floors are heated once or twice a day. The concrete absorbs warmth and releases it gradually for hours. Even after the boiler shuts down, the floor stays warm long into the night. This delayed release often decides whether a family can sleep safely until morning. Apartment life adapts around the system. Furniture stays low. Beds are rare. Meals, rest, and sleep all happen close to the floor. Thick quilts trap heat near the body, while walls and ceilings are allowed to remain cold without causing danger. The system is fragile. Fuel shortages, broken pipes, and poor maintenance mean some apartments receive uneven heat. One unit may be warm while another stays cold. Residents learn to judge the situation by touch. If the floor cools too early, extra layers come out immediately. Ondol does not rely on constant power at night. It relies on mass, timing, and patience. In North Korea's winters, where outages are common and apartments are small, sleeping safely often depends on whether the floor beneath you still holds yesterday's heat. When apartment heating fails, many North Korean families turn to coal briquettes to survive the night. These compressed blocks of coal dust, often called yantan, become the main source of warmth in tiny living spaces where electricity is unreliable and gas is scarce. A briquette is placed into a small stove or a built-in heating chamber connected to the ondol floor. Once lit, it burns slowly for hours. The heat spreads into the floor or radiates directly into the room, depending on the setup. One briquette can provide steady warmth long enough to cook, heat water, and keep a sleeping area livable through the coldest part of the night. Families plan carefully around briquettes. Fuel is limited, so timing matters. Fires are often lit in the late afternoon or early evening, so heat peaks around bedtime. The goal is not to keep flames burning all night, but to store heat in concrete floors, walls, and heavy objects before sleeping. Using briquettes indoors carries risk. Poor ventilation can lead to carbon monoxide buildup. To reduce danger, residents crack windows slightly, adjust vents, and extinguish fires before sleeping when possible. Experience teaches caution. People learn the smell, the sound, and the behavior of a safe burn. The work around briquettes is constant. Someone must carry them up stairwells, keep them dry, and remove ash daily. Black dust settles on floors and walls. Buckets of ash are stored on balconies or near stairwells, sometimes reused as insulation around pipes or windows. Despite the effort and danger, briquettes remain common because they are dependable. Unlike electricity, they do not shut off suddenly. Unlike gas, they do not depend on pipelines. If you have a briquette and a match, you can create heat. Sleeping arrangements adapt to this reality. Families gather in the warmest room. Mats and quilts are placed near the stove or over the warmest section of floor. Children and elders sleep closest to the heat source. Coal briquettes are not comfortable. They are survival tools. In North Korea's winters, they often decide whether an apartment stays barely warm enough to sleep or becomes dangerously cold before morning. When heat is limited, keeping it inside becomes as important as producing it. In North Korean apartments, Families spend winter sealing every possible path where warmth can escape. This work is quiet, constant, and essential for sleeping safely through the night. Concrete apartment blocks are poorly insulated. Window frames leak air. Door gaps let cold flow in. Walls radiate heat outward once the floor cools. To fight this, residents turn to improvised sealing methods using whatever materials are available. Plastic sheeting is the most common tool. Clear vinyl, greenhouse plastic, or salvaged wrapping is taped over windows from the inside. Edges are sealed with cloth strips, paper, or homemade paste. This creates a trapped layer of air between the window and the room. Even a thin air pocket slows heat loss significantly. Doors receive the same treatment. Thick blankets, padded coats, or quilted curtains are hung behind entrances. At night, these hangings are adjusted carefully so cold air cannot spill directly into sleeping areas. Some families place rolled cloth or foam along the base of doors to block drafts that creep in at floor level. Balconies are often enclosed as well. Plastic sheets or salvaged window panels turn them into buffer zones. Cold air no longer hits the apartment wall directly. Instead, it warms slightly before reaching the interior. This small difference matters during long nights. People also rearrange furniture to reduce exposure. Beds or sleeping mats are moved away from exterior walls. Unused rooms are closed off entirely. Life contracts into one space where heat can be concentrated. These measures change how apartments feel. Rooms become dimmer. Air grows still. Windows are opened briefly during the day for ventilation, then sealed again before evening. Families develop routines to manage condensation and frost buildup on plastic coverings. None of this requires fuel. It only requires attention and discipline. Every crack sealed means a little more warmth saved for the night. In a place where heating cannot be trusted, sleeping safely often depends on how well an apartment can hold on to the heat it already has. When winter deepens and heat becomes uncertain, North Korean families shrink their living space. Instead of trying to warm an entire apartment, they concentrate life into a single room. This strategy is one of the most effective ways people manage to sleep through freezing nights. Apartments are usually divided into several small rooms, but heating rarely reaches all of them evenly. One room may receive some warmth from the ondol floor or a stove, while others remain ice cold. Rather than waste fuel, families close off unused spaces completely. Doors are shut. Curtains or blankets are hung over doorways. Furniture is pushed aside. The warmest room becomes the center of daily life. This room serves many purposes. People cook, eat, study, rest, and sleep there. Mats and thin mattresses are spread on the floor near the warmest section. Quilts are stacked and shared. During the day, the same space is used for sitting and working, so body heat and movement add warmth to the room. Sleeping arrangements follow the same logic. Children and older family members sleep closest to the heat source or the warmest part of the floor. Adults take the edges. Bodies are placed close together to reduce heat loss. The room becomes crowded, but the temperature stays higher than it would in an open apartment. Closing off rooms also protects stored heat. Cold air trapped in unused spaces cannot flow freely into the living area. Walls between rooms act as additional insulation. The smaller the heated space, the longer warmth lasts after a fire goes out or the floor cools. This practice affects routine. Items needed overnight are kept within reach. Trips to unheated rooms are avoided after dark. Even bathroom visits are minimized during extreme cold. Concentrating life into one room is not comfortable, but it is efficient. It turns limited heat into something usable through the night. In North Korea's winters, survival often depends not on how much heat you have, but on how wisely you use the space around it. When heat fades at night, North Koreans rely on what stays with the body. Heavy quilts and layered clothing become the final barrier between sleep and a freezing cold inside small apartments. Bedding is thick and deliberate. Families use multiple quilts stacked together rather than a single blanket. Each layer traps still air, slowing the escape of body heat. Older quilts are often preferred. Years of use soften the filling and improve insulation. Quilts are tucked tightly around shoulders and feet where heat is lost fastest. Sleeping mats or thin mattresses are placed directly on the warmest part of the floor. Even when ondol heat weakens, the floor often remains warmer than the air. Quilts seal that warmth close to the body. Some families add folded coats or spare blankets beneath the bedding to block cold from rising. Clothing stays on through the night. People sleep wearing padded jackets, thick socks, and hats. This is not temporary, it is routine. Layers are chosen carefully so warmth is held without causing sweating, which would make the cold more dangerous. Cotton, wool, and quilted fabrics are favored because they breathe while insulating. Children are bundled heavily and placed between adults. Elders receive extra layers. Family members share bedding when possible to combine body heat. Space is tight, but warmth increases. During the day, quilts are aired whenever sunlight reaches the window. Moisture weakens insulation, so drying is essential. At night, bedding is checked and adjusted before sleep begins. Once people settle in, movement is minimized to keep heat from escaping. These habits turn the body itself into a heat source. Even when the room feels cold, the space under the quilts can remain warm enough to sleep safely for hours. Heavy bedding and layered clothing require no fuel and no power. They depend only on preparation and discipline. In North Korean apartments, where heating cannot be guaranteed, sleep often depends on how well warmth is wrapped around the body rather than how warm the room feels. In many North Korean apartment buildings, balconies become critical winter tools rather than extra space. Originally built as open concrete platforms, they are gradually enclosed to help families survive nights when indoor heat is weak or completely gone. Residents seal balconies with plastic sheets, salvaged window frames, or layers of vinyl. Edges are fastened with tape, wire, or strips of cloth. The result is uneven and temporary, but effective. Once enclosed, the balcony forms an air pocket between the outside world and the living space. Cold wind no longer strikes the apartment wall directly. Instead, it slows, settles, and warms slightly before reaching the interior. This buffer zone reduces heat loss through the wall shared with the balcony. When ondol floors or stoves provide even a small amount of warmth, less of it escapes. At night, this difference can mean several critical degrees. Enclosed balconies also serve practical purposes. Coal briquettes, firewood, and other fuel are stored there to keep them dry and closer to indoor temperatures. Buckets of ash are placed outside the main living space. Some families store water containers on balconies so they freeze more slowly than they would outdoors. During sunny winter days, sunlight heats the enclosed balcony naturally. Even weak sun raises the temperature inside the sealed space. That warmth seeps inward through shared walls and doors. At night, interior doors are closed to trap this gained heat inside the apartment. Sleeping arrangements adapt around this layout. Mats and bedding are often placed against balcony-facing walls because they stay warmer than exterior walls exposed directly to wind. Families learn which parts of the apartment hold warmth longest and arrange sleep accordingly. Maintenance never stops. Plastic tears in strong wind and must be patched. Condensation forms and freezes, so surfaces are wiped daily. These routines become part of winter life. Enclosed balconies do not create comfort. They create survivability. In small North Korean apartments where heating is fragile and cold is relentless, this extra layer between home and winter often determines whether warmth lasts through the night. In North Korean apartments, where heating is uneven and unreliable, where you sleep matters as much as how you sleep. Families learn to identify the warmest zones of the floor and arrange their nights around those areas. Ondol heat does not spread evenly. Pipes or channels beneath the floor warm some sections more than others. Corners near exterior walls cool fastest. Areas closer to the kitchen or heating source stay warmer longer. Residents test the floor with bare hands or feet before laying out bedding. The difference can be felt immediately. Sleeping mats and thin mattresses are placed directly over these warm zones. Beds raised off the floor are avoided in winter because air cools faster than concrete. Floor contact allows stored heat to move directly into the body. Even when the room air feels cold, the floor can remain warm enough to sleep safely for hours. Timing is critical. Fires or heating cycles are often planned for late afternoon or early evening. This allows the floor to reach peak warmth before bedtime. Families do not aim for heat during sleep. They aim for heat before sleep, then rely on stored warmth through the night. Once bedding is placed, movement is minimized. Walking across warm areas releases heat. Doors stay closed. Curtains are drawn. People settle in early to trap warmth while it lasts. Children and elders are positioned in the warmest spots. Adults take areas where heat fades first. Quilts overlap to prevent gaps between sleeping areas. Shoes and outer clothing are kept nearby, but off the floor to avoid pulling heat away. During extreme cold, families may rotate sleeping positions through the night. If one area cools too much, bedding is shifted slightly closer to retain warmth. These adjustments happen quietly without turning on lights or opening doors. This approach requires awareness, not fuel. People learn their apartments by touch and habit. In buildings where heating cannot be trusted, survival comes from understanding how warmth moves through concrete. By sleeping on the warmest floor zones and timing heat carefully, North Korean families turn limited energy into safe rest, even when winter presses hard against thin walls. When winter becomes too severe for an apartment to stay warm, some North Korean families change where they sleep rather than how they heat. Sharing space with relatives or trusted neighbors becomes a practical survival choice during the coldest periods. Not all apartments receive heat equally. Buildings differ in boiler supply, pipe condition, and location within the block. One unit may retain warmth longer due to better ondol flow or interior placement, while another cools rapidly once heating stops. Families are aware of these differences. When temperatures drop sharply, people move toward the warmest available space. This sharing is usually temporary. Children, elders, or entire households may sleep in one apartment for several nights during extreme cold. Mats, quilts, and personal items are carried over in the evening and returned during the day. Sleeping arrangements become dense, but body heat increases quickly in a shared room. The logic mirrors older rural habits. Fewer rooms mean less heat loss. More bodies mean more warmth. Fuel use is reduced because one heated floor supports many people instead of several cold ones consuming separate resources. Trust matters. This practice happens within families, close relatives, or long-standing neighbors. Privacy is sacrificed for safety. People coordinate schedules, meals, and fire timing to avoid waste and discomfort. Shared sleeping also improves safety. If heating fails completely or carbon monoxide risks increase, multiple adults are present to notice problems quickly. Someone is always awake or half awake during the night, listening for changes in temperature or airflow. These arrangements are rarely discussed openly, but they are widely understood. They reflect a social response to physical scarcity. When infrastructure cannot guarantee warmth, people rely on each other. This method requires no tools and no fuel. It depends on relationships, timing, and cooperation. In North Korean winters, surviving the night is sometimes less about insulation or stoves and more about who you can share warmth with when the cold becomes unmanageable. In recent years, small solar setups have quietly changed how some North Korean families endure winter nights. These systems do not replace heating, but they support survival when power outages are constant and darkness deepens the cold. Solar panels are often mounted on balconies, rooftops, or window ledges where sunlight is strongest. Even weak winter sun can charge small batteries during the day. By night, that stored energy powers a single light bulb, a radio, or a low-watt electric blanket in rare cases. The goal is not comfort, it is control. Light matters in the cold. When apartments go dark, people avoid moving to conserve heat and prevent accidents. A single dim bulb allows families to adjust bedding, monitor children, or check a stove safely without opening doors or letting warmth escape. It reduces unnecessary movement that would drain stored heat. Some households use solar power to run small fans briefly after lighting cold briquettes. This helps clear smoke before sleeping and lowers carbon monoxide risk. Others charge phones or radios, which provide weather updates or alerts during severe cold spells. In a few cases, solar energy supports heat retention rather than heat creation. Batteries power electric mats or pads placed under bedding for a short period before sleep. These are used sparingly, often for children or elders, and turned off before morning to conserve power. Solar equipment is maintained carefully. Panels are wiped clean of snow and dust. Wires are protected from freezing. Batteries are kept indoors where temperatures remain higher. Failure means darkness, so upkeep becomes part of daily routine. Not every family has access to these systems, but their presence is growing. Markets supply panels, and knowledge spreads by observation. Neighbors learn from neighbors. Solar setups do not make apartments warm. They make them manageable. They reduce risk, extend routines, and support other survival methods already in place. In North Korea's winter nights, sunlight captured hours earlier can still make the difference between chaos and control, between dangerous cold and a night endured quietly until morning. In North Korean apartments, sleeping on the floor is not a preference. It is a response to how heat actually works. When warmth comes from beneath the concrete, the floor becomes the safest place to rest during winter nights. Ondol heating warms surfaces, not air. Even when the system is weak, the floor often holds residual heat longer than the room itself. Air cools quickly once heating stops, but concrete releases stored warmth slowly. Families adapt by sleeping where heat remains strongest. Beds raised on legs are avoided in winter. Elevation lifts the body into colder air and away from stored heat. Instead, thin mattresses, woven mats, or folded quilts are placed directly on the floor. This allows warmth to move upward into the body instead of being lost to the room. This habit shapes the entire apartment layout. Furniture stays low or is pushed aside at night. The warmest floor sections become sleeping zones. During the day, the same areas are used for sitting, eating, and working, so heat is continuously reinforced by body contact and activity. Clothing and bedding work together with the floor. Quilts are spread wide to seal warmth against the surface. Jackets or padded clothing are sometimes placed beneath bedding to add insulation from cooling concrete edges. Shoes are kept off sleeping areas so they do not pull heat away. Floor-based sleeping also improves efficiency. One heated surface supports multiple people. Families sleep close together, allowing body heat to combine with stored floor warmth. Children and elders take the center positions. Adults form the outer edges where temperatures drop first. Movement is minimized after settling in. Walking across heated areas releases warmth. Doors remain closed. Lights are kept low or off entirely to avoid unnecessary activity. This approach requires awareness rather than fuel. People learn exactly how long their floors stay warm after heating ends. They adjust bedtime, bedding thickness, and positioning accordingly. Floor-based sleeping is quiet, disciplined, and effective. In North Korean winters, survival often depends on staying close to the ground, where yesterday's heat still waits beneath thin layers of cloth and patience. In North Korean apartments, winter survival often depends on how space is used rather than how it was designed. When heating is unreliable, families adapt the layout of their homes to follow warmth wherever it appears. Apartments are rarely heated evenly. Heat may reach one room through ondol pipes, a stove, or residual warmth from shared walls, while other rooms remain unusable for months. Families respond by reorganizing their entire living arrangement around the warmest zone. Furniture is moved deliberately, beds are removed or pushed aside, tables are lowered or folded, cabinets are shifted away from exterior walls that radiate cold. The warmest room becomes multifunctional. It serves as kitchen, bedroom, study area, and gathering space. Unused rooms are sealed off completely. Doors are closed. Heavy curtains or blankets are hung over doorways. This prevents cold air trapped in unheated spaces from flowing back into the living area. Walls between rooms act as insulation once airflow is stopped. Sleeping layouts change with temperature. If heat weakens, bedding is relocated closer to the kitchen wall, shared pipes, or the most active ondol channel. Families learn exactly where heat lingers longest and adjust nightly. Daily routines follow the same logic. Cooking, studying, and resting all happen in the same space, so body heat reinforces stored warmth. Movement between rooms is minimized after sunset. Items needed overnight are kept within arm's reach to avoid opening doors. This adaptation also reduces fuel use. Heating one compact space requires far less energy than attempting to warm an entire apartment. The goal is not comfort, it is stability through the night. Apartment layout adaptation requires no materials and no power. It relies on observation, flexibility, and discipline. In North Korean winters, the home is not a fixed structure. It is a shifting system, reorganized again and again to follow heat wherever it can still be found. But beyond concrete apartments, another answer exists. Far to the west, families sleep underground in carved earth itself. How do northern Chinese survive winter inside cave homes without freezing to death?